Hello? Am I live yet? Can you hear me? Let's see. Mhm. We're gonna see. Okay, yay. I think I'm live. Hi. Awesome. Okay, so good to see everybody. Thank you so much, Sherilyn. Oh, good. Yay. I actually was having this conversation with somebody else on Instagram today um that is my goal when I make content or present anything is I want other teachers to feel like, oh, okay, like I'm not alone and this is for me. So that's awesome. What kind of resonated with you? And if you're here and you're watching, just let me know where you're from maybe and what you teach. Oh, batching. Yeah. Batching is a game changer, I think, for teaching because you don't realize how much energy it takes to shift between different tasks. Um, so I think it's definitely something that's helpful. All right. So a few things. Oh, Hawaii. Wow. It's early for you, isn't it? You're 6 hours behind me. I'm 1:30 here, so 7 o'clock, 7:30. West Texas, fifth grade, sixth grade moving to fifth. Awesome. Also sixth grade. Cool. Yeah, I think, it's so interesting because one of the things that people rarely talk about with teaching that I think makes teaching so challenging is that we have so little control over our time. Like we have so little control over when we get to do work and how that time is broken up. And we're being asked to do a lot of work in very short chunks of time, which is not necessarily conducive to the kind of work we're doing. Um, and so you kind of have to like you have to have a game plan if you want to tackle your work in your contract hours or close to it. Southern Idaho, Texas. This is so cool. It's so cool that everybody is all over the country. I'm in Maryland, so East Coast here, and it's like 1:30. But you all are watching me in the morning or maybe right over lunch. So cool. What are some questions I can answer or specific things that were challenges for you in the past year when it comes to like schedule planning or productivity? Anything I can help with? Oh, yeah, cognitive load and decision fatigue. Yeah, okay, so when I think about cognitive load, I think about it with students, right? We would never ask students to learn to learn multiple things at a time, right? When we are working with students and we are um elementary, for example, we might do cross curricular things, but we are not expecting them to learn full new processes along with brand new content, right? When we introduce processes with our students, for example, we introduce processes or procedures separately, um, or we give them a lot more time to learn those processes and procedures when they're working with new content because we understand that we're asking their brain to do more. And the same thing is true for teachers. So when we think about cognitive load, the cognitive load is not just the task that you're taking on, it's also the amount of time and energy that it takes for your brain to comprehend what you're doing. So when we talk about like multitasking being a myth, it's because anytime you task switch, anytime you switch from, maybe grading to lesson planning, it takes your brain time to transition between the grading and then the lesson planning, right? We have to come down from the grading that task that we were doing, and we have to shift the type of work we're doing to get into doing lesson planning. And that's why, like, when I think about batching, I think, we wanna think in terms of the type of tasks that we're doing because asking your brain to do creative work is different than asking your brain to do analytical tasks. And so if we can batch our work together in that way, where we're putting more creative work together, more analytical work together, and then those like logistics tasks that are really just checking them off together, we're asking our brain to do less to transition between tasks, which frees us up to be able to do the task itself. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's so interesting that you're saying that, Sherilyn, because I am one of the things that I'm starting to do, like in the type of content that I create and the presentations I'm doing, I'm trying to think about like, there's so much we can do as teachers, but um, systemic change has to come from a higher level. And what can administrators do to better support teachers understanding the challenges that exist within our workload? Yeah. Um, Color coded them. Yep. Oh yeah, keeping your energy level in mind is huge because and I was a secondary teacher for all of my career, but I knew which classes drained me. I knew which days I was going to have less energy, and if I had tried to put lesson planning during my 6th period planning on a day when I had 5 classes before that that really were tough for me to work in, it would have been very difficult for me to get into creative flow. Oh yeah, so if you're interested, I don't know if I mentioned this in the presentation, but if you're interested in learning more about like if you know you're a night owl or maybe you think you work best in the morning, there's a book by Daniel Pink, who's one of my favorite authors, called When, and it's all about the science of timing. And he talks so much about that, about understanding like when you do your best certain types of work, and how, scheduling our time so we're doing work during our best work time can really be helpful in preserving your energy hours. Yeah. Yeah. He's awesome. Think I missed something else. Let's see. What were some other things I knew I wanted to add on? I made myself some notes today. Oh, one of the things that I think, oh yeah, Hell Elrod is great. Yeah, especially if you're looking to do Hell. In my 20s, I had like a self-development phase where that was the only kind of books I was reading. And Hal Elrod was one of my first. So Miracle Morning is a great resource if you're trying to learn how to wake up and go to bed consistently, for sure. I will add in something that I've learned. I had a baby 2 years ago, and my baby didn't sleep very well. So my one disclaimer is if you are not getting at least 6 hours of sleep a night, for things perhaps that are out of your control, it might be better for your brain to sleep in rather than getting up early. But if you are getting at least 6 hours of sleep a night, then yeah, getting yourself into a routine to wake up a little earlier, to kind of set up your day, is a game changer. My son recently started sleeping a lot better, and I have been able to like reclaim an hour to 2 hours to myself in the morning, and it is awesome. Yes. Yeah. You know, some of us are terrible at boundaries. I'm one of them. But also it doesn't help when that gets taken advantage of. So, it can be really hard to start becoming somebody who has boundaries if the people that you are working with are taking advantage of the fact that you've had fewer boundaries in the past. So, yeah, it's definitely both. And the other thing that I'll say is when you start setting boundaries, you might get pushback, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't set them. And honestly, it probably means you need to set them more because if people are pushing back on you setting boundaries for your well being, um, that needs to be challenged. So, mhm. Yeah, if you feel like you can't, so this is how I say no. That is my basis for saying no in the school setting. And I think it's really good because it centers kids. Yeah, Sherilyn, I'm an introvert too, so I totally understand that. So I think if you're asked to do additional tasks that are not in your contract, um, centering it around the kids and saying, unfortunately, I cannot give 100% to this. I have other things on my plate and I don't have the capacity to be what the school or the students need in this additional capacity. And the kids deserve somebody who is able to give 100%. And right now, that's not me. Um, yeah, so there's a TikTok. I gotta find it. Caroline, I see your question. I'm gonna answer it here in a second. Um, there's a TikTok. I gotta find it and share it again. It was last year, but she was talking about the legal implications of additional duties as assigned. And that needs to be in the scope of your job as a teacher. So, for example, if I were asked, and I have been asked to do professional development, right, for my school, that's actually not in my job description as a teacher. Like, there's nowhere in the job description that says I'm going to be providing training to my coworkers. And not that I don't like to do that, but I totally have a basis to say, no, sorry, I don't have the capacity to do this. And the other thing you can do is you can say, hey, I hear that you want me to do this. I don't have the capacity based on the number of hours that are in my contract or what my contract says I'm going to work. What can come off of my plate? I don't have the capacity to do all of this. What can come off of my plate? Yep. Okay. My favorite system that I've implemented in my classroom, the one that I shared 100%, regrade. So I think I mentioned this in my training, but um, a core belief for me is allowing students to redo work. And also, I've always taught secondary. Now I teach college, and I've always had hundreds of students, which means that is a lot of additional work that I'm taking on. And there is no way that I would be able to manage that without having a system. The other little mini system that's part of that is that gradebook key, which is so good because like probably you're on Canvas or Google Classroom or Clever, and your students have access to all of their assignments, but they're not necessarily all in one place. And so it's multiple clicks for kids to find it. Not everybody's classroom is set up the same way. So it can be hard for kids to go in and figure out, okay, let me remember how this is set up in Miss Manley's classroom. So having the gradebook key, which is literally just a one pager of everything they've been assigned, all of the points, any notes, any links, has been such an energy saver for me because if they want to redo something, they can go there and find it. If we're absent, they can go there and find it. If a parent reaches out to me, I can send them that information. So it's just a nice way to communicate. Yes, it is common to start saving money by having in-house teachers give PD. And I have been both. I have been an in-house teacher that does PD, and I have been a PD provider. And the reality is that providing PD is not in your job description as a teacher. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I learned and gained a lot from facilitating PD for my school, and now I'm able to do it and get paid for it. But you are also allowed to ask to be compensated for work that is outside of the scope of your job. And if they can't compensate you and you don't have the capacity and you've decided, this is not necessarily something that aligns with what I want to do in the future, it is totally within your realm to be able to say no. Yeah. uh, that's so interesting. Yeah. So my story about being an introvert is that I thought I was an extrovert for a long time because I love speaking. I love teaching. It's really fun for me. I love engaging with people and interacting with people. But the deciding factor for me and the reason I learned that I was an introvert, not an extrovert, and not even an ambivert, but I am an introvert, is if I need to recharge, if I am drained, I want to be alone. Like I want to go read a book. I want to, sit out by the pool by myself. I might want to, journal, and that's really the difference is where do you get your energy from? What are some other things that you all have learned from the conference so far? Any other cool things we can talk about or questions I can answer? Oh, yeah, of course. I was I was so excited. So I follow Brittany on social media, and when she asked me to be part of the conference, I was so excited because I feel like this is the kind of PD that teachers should be doing over the summer, right? PD that is focused on it's not really professional development, it's self-development, and giving them systems and strategies to be able to avoid burnout this year. And I think the roster of people presenting is amazing. Vicky, did you tell me yet what you teach? I think I gotta scroll up. I don't think so. What do you teach, Vicky? I'm curious. Yeah, I think more teachers need to hear that you are not a bad teacher because you put yourself first. And that was something that I had to learn was that I am better for the kids if I am putting myself first. Because if I don't and I burn out and I'm gonna get more frustrated with them more easily. I'm not gonna be able to give 100% to them. And so in some ways, it's kind of selfish to not put myself first because I'm not giving them the best version of myself. Oh, cool. Middle school. Yeah. I loved middle school. They were so fun. Yeah. I'm a computer science teacher. So a little bit of math. Definitely math mindset, algorithmic thinking. Yeah, I love that she made it free too. So you can come and learn from a bunch of people that have lots of different strategies. Have been toxic. Oh yeah. Students are always the best, honestly. Like when we think about challenges in education, I feel like most of the time it's not the students. I mean, students can be challenging, but um yeah. Yeah, if you have toxic colleagues, I would do what you can to avoid spending extra time with them. Doesn't make you a bad colleague if you only engage with people professionally when you have to. Oh, I love that. I plan to retire from people pleasing this year. Yes. Yeah. I will tell you, and I've said this before on like social media platforms and stuff. Uh, Therapy was really helpful for me during a good chunk of my kind of unlearning the people pleasing, and I'm still not perfect at it. Like, that is just part of me. That's a trait that I have, and so I really have to kinda check myself sometimes, but yeah, I worked with a therapist, and she was really helpful. Students are challenging for a rea oh, I love that, Vicky. Yeah, students are challenging for a reason. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I think that's another thing that I think teachers there's a lot of teachers who are empaths, which is why there's a lot of teachers who are people pleasers, and also a lot of teachers are women, and women get learn subconsciously early to be people pleasers. Not all women, but a lot of women. And uh, one of I remember the first time I heard no is a complete sentence, and that was such a game changer for me, right? Because so many times when I'm asked to do something and I say no, or I'm like, not right now, I feel like I have to give reasons and justifications. And it's totally okay to just say no. Like your priorities are just as important and they don't have to be an excuse as to why you're saying no. You can just say no. Mm, fair. So I'm curious because, like I said, I've always taught secondary or college. Um, if you're an elementary teacher, and I think a lot of you are, how much time to plan do you get during the week? How much planning time do you get? Either by yourself or in a group? 30 minutes a day. Are you able I know a lot of you are upper elementary, are you able to kind of create time in your day too? Or is it really do your students still require, like, lots of hands-on? Not really, yeah. Wow. Yeah, yeah, I think that that has to be the approach to figure out, how do we build in systems and supports so students know what they're supposed to be doing during that work time, but mhm. Right, it's not a full hour because 'cause you're going and dropping them off, picking them up, and then also just probably decompressing too, right, from the day? Yeah, elementary for sure has less planning time. That's what I was asking about because it feels like you all are expected to do those of you who are teaching elementary, you have so little time that's actually your own, um, and then you have, like, a little time before and a little time after, right? Yeah, I think if I were looking at an elementary schedule, one of the things that I would try to do is pick the days that you have the most energy, where for whatever reason you feel the most energized, and those are if you're going to stay late, and this is not me telling you to stay late, because I do believe that teachers should work their contract hours if they're able to, um, having, like, a couple of days where you're staying after for 2 hours, where it's a chunk time, or, if you work better after having I know somebody said that they work better, as a night owl, like, picking 2 days a week that you do those chunks of work when you really can get into flow. Because that's the other thing that's so hard about it is that 30 minutes is not enough time to really get into deep work. Mhm. Yeah, Vicky, I think that's a great idea. I think picking, and somebody is talking about that this weekend, but I can't remember their name. But choosing some systems or protocols that students follow, so they again thinking about that cognitive load piece, like they have routines for the times where you want them to be unmanaged, where you want to be able to work while they're working. Yep. Didn't seem to know how to behave during different activities. Yes. Mm. Yeah, I think one of the ways that I understand the feeling that you want to be walking around and observing and assisting students. Um, there is so I like I said, I'm a computer science teacher, and so a lot of the work that they're doing, students are on different levels of the code that they're writing. They might be doing projects where they've got 30 different projects going on at once. And so by necessity, I have to build in and we teach peer coaching and peer support. Ask three before me is a very is the version of that that everybody uses and knows, but building in, teaching peer coaching, coming up with a system so that when students need help, you know, they know to talk with their group, or indicate that they need help and other students are helping them. Um, and I've done that so like I said, I taught middle school for a little bit, sixth grade. I've done that with sixth grade. So not sure about fifth grade, but that's pretty close. So they're still getting help, and you're also able to get some work done. Because I think really what we're trying to avoid is we don't want students just like hanging out by themselves, um, and not being able to get the help they need. But you deserve to have to only work your contract hours or close to it, right? And that's something that I don't think I talked about in my session, but if you're currently working 60 hours a week, dropping from 60 to 40 is not reasonable, right? Like you have been working 60-hour weeks. And so maybe your goal this year, if you're somebody that's working 60-hour weeks, is to try and work 55-hour weeks. And then when you feel comfortable with that, like maybe we're going to try and work 50-hour weeks, and slowly stepping back because dropping. Oh, perfect. Session with the survey was Maddie Fry. Yeah, so if you didn't watch that one, definitely watch that one. But having a reasonable expectation of what your goal is, because honestly, right, like even even working 5 hours less a week is a serious quality of life improvement, and that's 5 hours that you get back to yourself or with your family or with your friends. Um, yeah, I love that. Yeah, not working on your weekends unless you absolutely have to. That is an awesome boundary to set. Awesome boundary. My other advice for weekends, I don't think I talked about this, so this is good takeaway. Work will always fill the time that you give it. It's always going to expand to fit, especially in a job like teaching, where you are always going to have things on your to-do list. To-do list never done. And so one of the suggestions that I always give is on Friday, write down what you want to accomplish on the during the weekend, and then guesstimate how much time you think that will take. So here's your to-do list. I'm going to go ahead and um, set how much time I think each task is going to take. It's 4 hours. I'm going to pick a 4 hour block over my weekend. And that's the only time I have all weekend to work. And I generally suggest, trying to limit it to 1 day a weekend. If you are choosing to work on the weekends, I obviously love the idea of not working on the weekends. That way you have the time that is not your work time is your time, and it's not filling your whole weekend. Oh yeah, the autoresponder. That's something that I came up with during the pandemic, and it has been a game changer. It is so helpful in helping me kind of weed out my email. You will work on not checking your emails or responding to parents on the weekends. Yeah, I mean, the suggestion is exactly what Sherilyn said, which is if you're not going to be responding on the weekends, you can put up an autoresponder that says, "Hey, thank you for your email. Here's some frequently asked questions." And I will respond to emails on Monday when I am back in school, you know? Um, here's the thing. Um, Likely those parents have boundaries with their work too. And it's not fair to expect you to respond to them immediately um, when you have boundaries, right, during your weekend. Yeah, yeah. In my presentation, Rose, there is, and I'll put it, if you message me, well, I can drop it in the Facebook recording once I leave because right now I'm like broadcasting live, but once I leave, I'll drop the link so you can click on it if you don't see it. Um, if you have Google or Outlook, it's really easy. What I would Google is Google your vacation autoresponder. That's what it's called for most of them, and they can tell you that it'll show you on your email platform how to set it up. Yep. Yeah. So Google is really easy. You are going to, in your Gmail, I actually can tell you right now, I'm going to pull it up. In your Gmail, you'll click on settings and then see all settings. And then you'll just scroll down to the bottom and you'll see vacation autoresponder. Yeah, it's super easy. Once you do it once, you'll never forget it. Yep. Yeah, I think the other thing that I would add to this is it is really tempting. So if you say you're not gonna respond on the weekends, but then you check your email and then you respond, what you've communicated to whoever you responded to is that you do respond on the weekends. And so if you know that you're gonna be tempted to respond if you look, just don't look. Don't look until Monday. Um, because we want to set that expectation. And when our actions aren't necessarily aligned with the like verbal expectation we've given, it's confusing to people. Not that that's fair to you, but because you should be able to, maybe respond occasionally, but that's not how people perceive it. Wow. Well, we are almost out of time, but I really appreciate all of you being here with me and chatting with me. I am on Instagram and TikTok as Strategic Classroom, and then I'm also on Twitter as Jennifer_Manley. I'm not there as much. My email address is jenmanleyedu@gmail.com. And if you need anything at all, please reach out. Let's connect on social media. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. It was so fun to hang out with you guys. Thank you so much. Awesome. Okay. Bye, friends.